Hello and welcome to this video tutorial from Computergaga.com. In this video we are going to look at how you can create a searchable drop-down list just like you get on Google, like this one on screen. So I have a list of names, 87 names I have in this list, but in this drop-down list that I have provided, when I click on my drop-down I get a full list of names. But I also have the option to begin to type into the drop down, and you can see it searching through it and shortening the list to only the names that contain the letters that I'm typing, and I can then make my selection. This is what we're going to look at in this video. It would look amazing in your Excel forms and your Excel reports to have a tool such as this. So let's get it done. Okay, so you will notice that I've set up 3 columns here for the workings that we are going to have to do, for the formulas we're going to have to write to create this searchable list. But before we get into all that, we actually need to create the drop down. Now this drop down is a form control. It's the combo box form control. It's not the data validation list that I've used quite a bit in my videos. So we will need the developer tab up above. If you do not have a developer tab, just right mouse click anywhere on the ribbon, customize the ribbon, and check the box on the right for developer. I already have mine, so I'm going to click on developer, click on insert, and I want the combo box ActiveX control. So it's in this second button on the first row of the ActiveX controls. I'm going to give that a click, and I'm going to draw it onto this sheet. Now don't worry if your drawing is not the correct size or position. First of all, we can always move and adjust this at a later date. But I'm going to do a rough drawing of a combo box, the kind of height and width I think it needs to be for these names, and release. The combo box is there, and I'm straight into this design mode for it, meaning that if I click somewhere else on my spreadsheet and then go and click the arrow of the combo box, it simply selects it, because at the moment I'm in this design mode. It's not functioning as a drop down would yet. Now I need to click this properties button. The first thing we need to do is set a property. Whoops. So when I click on properties, it will bring up this big set of settings for me. And about halfway down, we have a setting for linked cell. So you can see there's an awful lot of stuff in this list. Everything from changing colours to changing fonts to some slightly more technical stuff. But linked cell is a must. We need to link the value that's coming from this combo box to a cell on a spreadsheet, so we can then test that cell in our formulas and our macros and our charts and all kinds of stuff that we may wish to do. Now I'm going to type this in, and I'm simply going to connect it to cell G1. You could pick any cell here, and typically this cell would be hidden from sight in the end result. We don't want that kind of stuff visible in our forms and our reports. But I'm going to choose cell G1, and then I'm going to close down this properties window. I'm then going to click on my design mode button to turn it off from design mode at the moment, just to show you what it currently does. So when I click in here, this combo box, and I start typing a name at the moment, if I start typing the colour red or something like that, then you can see as I'm typing the value appearing in cell G1. So that is the linked cell. That's the information we're going to test a bit in our formulas. So let's get on to that. Okay, now the first formulas we will need to write are going to be to check whether the letters being typed into the combo box are found within the names of these people. So we need to know whether they should appear in the searchable list. That's the first thing we're going to need to do. So let me just put a couple of letters into my combo box control. So I have some sample data, which we don't necessarily need, but we'll be able to see our formulas working as we go if we have something to play with. So I've got the letters T and the H. And let me zoom in to the cell that I'm working in so that you guys can see the formula I write. Now in cell B2, I'm going to use a function called search. And you can see that its purpose is to return the number of the character of which a specific character or characters is found. So I'm going to search for the T and the H in each of these names, and if it finds the T and the H, tell me where in that name the T and the H appear. Now ultimately I don't care about where they appear, I just want to know that they do appear. So let me run this search function. What is it I'm looking for? I'm looking for the content of G1, which is whatever people type into the combo box, because that is that link cell. And I'm going to fix those cells. That's an absolute reference to G1. Comma. In what cell do I look? It's going to be the first name, which is in A2 there, the cell to the left. And the final question about start num, whereabouts in that cell do I begin looking for those characters? Now this is an optional question, I don't need it right now. Check the entire list. I don't need to start from a certain character or anything. So close bracket. And if I proceed with this and press enter and copy that to the bottom, if the letters are not found, I get this nasty error because it can't find them. But if I scroll down this list, where a T and a H was found, it returns the first position. So in the case of Catherine Dewey, the T and H are beginning from the third character, so it's 3. In the case of Elizabeth Brown, they're beginning from what apparently is the 8th character in that list. So if it's found, it brings a number. If it's not, it brings a horrible error. So let's go and add to that formula. And let's put in a function called isNumber. Now this function will check whether the value is a number, and if it does, return true, and if it doesn't, return false. So this will be a nice extension on what we've done, and all I'm doing here is wrapping the isNumber function around the search function. So when I run that function and copy it down, I now return false if it doesn't find it, and true if it does. Now for the last part of this formula, I want to convert the true and the false into a 1 and a 0, ready for the next formula we do. For it to be a number, a numeric value will be easier for us to work with. And to do this, I'm going to do a lovely little trick, which is to put a double negative before the part of the formula. And that double negative is going to convert that false into 0. So when I press enter now and copy it down, I'll now return 0 if the characters are not found, and 1 if the characters are found. And if I just zoom back at that list a bit, and if I was to go back and start adding to this list, let's put an E in. You can see Catherine is still found there, Catherine Jury, the E is in there. Elizabeth is not, so I've got 0s now. So my list would be shortening at this point. Okay, let's go on to the next part of the formula now, where we are going to have to check the frequency of times that a name has, these characters have appeared in a name. I've just removed the E from the combo box, from the name that I'm searching for. So in the if found list, I've just returned back to it finding Catherine Dewey and Elizabeth Brown, Elizabeth Lincoln, etc. And I now need this frequency formula to count how many names have been found. How many times have TH been found in column A? Now for this I'm going to use the COUNTIF function, an incredibly versatile, incredibly useful function of Excel. I want to count the occurrences of number 1, but I only want to perform the count if there is a 1. If there's not, then don't bother doing anything in this cell. So I'm going to begin with the if function so that I can test the first cell and test if it's equal to 1 or not. Put in my comma. If it is, then do that COUNTIF function. Count the number of occurrences of the 1. Now for the range here, and I'm just going to type this in, although to a degree I could highlight it. But I want to check if it's a fixed part at the bottom of the range, so B2 is the first cell of the range. Then I'm going to put in my comma, and then I'm going to put in another kind of B2. But I want to leave the row bit relative. So it's always counting up to the current point. Because if I count this entire range straight off the back, then it's going to come up with the answer 5 or something, however many times there are. But I want to know how many times up to this point in the list. So the first part is fixed and the second part is not. If that's a little bit unclear, bear with me, I'll demonstrate what it's doing afterwards. Let's carry on for now. I'll put a comma in. What's the criteria? 1. Count how many 1s in that list. Close bracket on that. I'm back to the if function. Comma. What do I do if there's not a 1 in there? Show nothing. I'll put an empty string. Couple of blank inverted commas. Close bracket. I'll run that function. And I'll copy it down. So, got a lot of blanks here because there's no THs in that name. Let's zoom out for a little bit of ease. And here we have the first occurrence of the TH in the name, the second occurrence, the third occurrence, and so on. And you can see if I look at the formula for Catherine Dewey there, that in this range it's now B2 to B14. So the first point is absolute, the second point has moved because I'm now in row 14. So it's adapting, it's counting up to this point in the list. Otherwise they would all, how many is there? There is 6. Otherwise if I didn't write the range that way, every answer would say 6. But it's like, oh, there's none, there's none, there's none, there's none, there's none. And someone's go, oh, there's 1, there's still 1, there's still 1. But I'm saying don't bother showing it unless there's a 1 in that row. So what we now have is the frequency of times that a name has occurred, and that's going to be useful for the next part of this formula, of this searchable list. Okay, what we are now going to do is actually create a list of the names that have those characters in them. So what we're creating here will ultimately be the names that appear in the combo box at this point, at searched list. And for this I'm going to use the index and match functions. Now some of you watching this may be familiar with these. I've done videos on them in the past, and it's known as a very useful, very versatile alternative to VLOOKUP as a lookup function. And I'm going to look up the names that have been found basically. So I'm going to start with the index function. And I want to tell the index function to look at the array, which is the list of names. So let me select this list of names and I'll make them absolute. So A2 to A88, the entire list of names. Comma. So this is looking in there and it's going to return a name for me. And now it's saying what row number. What row number has the name that you want me to return? And at this point I'm going to put the match function in. Now what I'm looking for here is Catherine Dewey. That is the first name that meets the criteria. TH is in her name. I'm going to get a match function to locate that row. That's going to ask me for a lookup value. And the lookup value is basically number 1. But then the next formula is going to be number 2. The next one's going to be number 3. So what I'm going to use for this, for a bit of a cheeky way, so I'm going to use the rows function. That's going to turn the number of rows in a reference as it moves down. Bear with me with this. I'm going to put in a comma, and I'm going to do a similar thing, bracket, I'm going to do a similar thing to what I did a moment ago with COUNTIF. I'm going to put dollar $C$2 colon $C2. So once again I've got that reference where it's fixed at the start but it's relative afterwards, and I put a closing bracket. So what that rows function's doing really is it's kind of just returning the current row that I'm in. So at the moment I'm in the first row of that range. I know I'm in the second row of the spreadsheet, but the first row of that range. As you copy it down, RBL second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row. But that's going to work because the first thing I'm looking for is the number 1. Then I'm looking for the number 2, and so on and so forth. So this is going to bring back in this list the first name, the second name, the third name. I hope this is making sense. Maybe a little bit unclear at the moment, but bear with the formula and we can always look back at it. Let's put my comma in. So now it wants to look up array. Where in this list am I looking? And I'm going to give it the entire frequency range. So I'm going to, I might as well type this in, $C $2 colon $C $88. I know that is, I can see it over in column A there. Because there's blanks, I can't really use too many shortcuts to highlight it. I thought I might as well type it in and be precise. Comma, what type of match? 0, exact match. Make sure you find these individuals. Closing bracket for the match function, that is. Closing bracket for the index function. So if I press enter on that one, it returns the first name. Next one should be Catherine, I can't remember. Here we go. Oh, Elizabeth, sorry. Elizabeth Brown. Then it's Elizabeth Lincoln, and so on. And I would copy this all the way to the bottom of this list. So we should see these names that are quite near the bottom appearing. There they are. Who are they? Simon Crofer, Thomas Hardy. Let me stop it there and scroll back up to the top, and here we go. They are the 6 names that are found in that list. So I looked down the frequency list, first of all for 1, second of all for 2, and so on. And it was the rows function that was telling me what number to look for. And then, yeah, within that range, an index function pulled the name out. So it's worked fantastic up to this point. I've then got some nasty errors, which is not ideal. So I'm going to just go into that formula, and I'm just going to add an if error function at the start to say that if you see an error in that index match formula, then return nothing. So I'm going to put that in there and copy it down to the bottom of that list, and that is now a little bit neater, a little bit tidier. So we're nearly there. I've now got the names that I want to appear in the drop down. Let's move on to the next task. Okay, we now need to get this searchable list of names into the combo box control. And the way I want to do that is I want to define the names that have been returned, that range, as a range name, and then get the combo box control to use that range name. Now I need this range name to be dynamic, because to demonstrate as people are typing into this combo box control, you can see the list of names is changing. Oops, didn't mean that, I meant a letter E there. So as you're typing in there, you can see it shortening, or if I change it to TE, oh dear, I'm making the right mess of this. Then basically as I'm typing though, you can see the list of names changing. So the first name is always in D2. But the second name, the last name, well, it depends how big the list is. It might just be one name, it might be 15 names. So the end bit needs to be dynamic. So our range name's going to need a formula. Now this is something that I've done in previous videos, so you may have seen one on this before. But this is the formula I'm going to need in the range name. I'm going to put it into a cell on the spreadsheet first, so that you can see what I'm doing easily. Now the first range of names will be D2. That I can guarantee. Colon. Where's the end of this range? Now that is the variable bit. That is where the brilliant index function comes in again. And you see in its description, the index function can return a value or a reference to a cell. Now I used it a moment ago, didn't I, to return the names in these cells. That was index function, return the value. Now I'm going to use the same function to find out how many names there are to get the last row. Fantastic. Let's bring this up. What's the array? That is the full list. That is the full list. D2 to D88. Comma. What's the row number? That's basically asking me what's the last row in the scenario I'm using here. Now to find the last row, I'm going to use another function that has already been used in this video, COUNTIF. These two functions, so useful. Open bracket. Now I want to count how many names in that list. So basically count if there's a name in the cell. The range will be the entire list again. D2 down to D88. Obviously you don't have to type it in. There's many ways of highlighting and selecting that. Comma. What's the criteria? Now if there's more than one character, really, if there's a name in there, and there's quite a few ways you can probably do that, but what I'm using here are the wildcard characters for Excel. So the question mark and the asterisk are wildcard characters. And I'm using that in my string, in my inverted commas, to basically say it's not blank. There's something, I don't know what, but there's something written in that cell. In this scenario, we know that's the name of an employee, but whatever it may be. Count how many cells have something. Closing bracket for COUNTIF, closing bracket for the index function. Now, this formula in this cell is not going to do anything useful. So when I press enter, it's just going to return like one of the names here. But what I want this for is to take a copy of that formula. Control C for a copy there you can't see on screen. I'm going to escape that cell. I'm going to click on formulas and define name. I'm going to create a range name. I need to give this range name a name. I'm going to call it employees, because I want to imagine that this is a list of employees of our company. You can use any name you want there. No spaces in a range name. I've called it employees. Then I'm going to paste in the formula I just wrote in cell, whatever that was, F6, into that refers to box. So that is going to find that dynamic range of names. I'm going to click on OK to confirm what I've just done. And now I can delete whatever I was messing around with in that cell. I don't want that formula. I was just using it so that you could see what I was doing. And now I have a range name. And that range name now needs to be applied to the combo box. And we'll see this finished searchable drop-down list. Okay, so now we need to assign that range name to this combo box control. And to do that, I'm going to click the Developer tab up above and click Design Mode. So with Design Mode back on, I can click on my combo box control to select it, and I can begin to make changes. I'm going to click on the Properties button to bring up that full list of properties for my combo box control. And just underneath the linked cell option that we did at the start of this video is one for list fill range. And the list fill range is employees. So that is the range name that I created a moment ago. I'll press enter to confirm, close down the properties window, come out of design mode so I can check it working. And now if I click the drop down, I can see I've got that list of names on my left there. And if I change the letters in the combo box, you can see it changing and shortening as I type. So how good is that? We have ourselves a searchable combo box. Now at the start of this to demonstrate, I clicked on the combo box arrow and then started typing. Let me demonstrate that if I don't do that, if I click in the combo box and just start typing, then you may be able to see the list on the left change, but a combo box is not appearing as I do that. So it's not actually quite there yet. I need to add one last bit to it. And that's going to be a tiny bit of VBA code, so that when somebody types in the box, the list appears. Bear in mind that I know you can see the list on the left, but in the real finished article, that's not going to be there. That's probably a hidden column or on a hidden sheet. You don't want that thing on your Excel dashboard or your Excel form. Your combo box will sit alone. You won't see the link cell, you won't see the column. So although we can see it in this demonstration that, all I'm doing here is typing into a box and I don't see anything happening, which is simply not good enough. So let's go and add that little bit of code in. Right, let's switch design mode back on, up on the developer tab, and I will double click on my combo box. Now by double clicking on it, it's an ActiveX control that's going to take me straight in to this code window and straight into what we call a sub procedure, an event for the change of the combo box. Every time the combo box is changed in some way, if somebody clicks an arrow, types something inside it, something happens. And what I'm going to type in here is going to be combo box 1. You could have potentially named yours differently. I can see the name of it just above. This is combo box 1, this thing. Combo box 1 dot drop down. That's what it's going to do. Now that's all we need. So if any of you watching this are not very familiar with VBA and stuff, then that is all we've got to do. Combo box 1 dot drop down. Whatever name your combo box is, dot drop down. Simple as that. No special coding skills necessary. I'm then going to close down that window and come out of design mode, and now it should be working. So if I came into this and I just clicked in that box and started typing SE, then the drop down appears immediately. I don't have to click the arrow to do that. It will work now in either scenario. If I click on the arrow or just start typing, the list appears as it would, say, in the likes of Google and these other softwares and systems and websites that you are used to seeing this behavior. We can create this behavior on our Excel spreadsheets to really wow those people viewing it, to make it that little bit more special, that interactive, useful, accurate, loads of good stuff. I hope you found this video useful. Please check out some of our other video tutorials on our YouTube channel and come check us out at Computergaga.com.